What's going on, guys? Welcome back to You Know Ball Podcast. I am your host, Trill Bro Dude. And before we get into anything else, I want to talk about our partners from Underdog Fantasy, the newest and best place to play fantasy sports and win big prizes. And if you followed the NBA last night on Wednesday, a ton of hoopers went off. Devin Booker scored 50 points in 3 quarters. Kevin Durant absolutely went off. Jayson Tatum, who we're about to talk about, the Boston Celtics and how they're ruining my fucking life right now, went off once again with the royal family in attendance. Sam approves everything that the royal family does, obviously. So had to bring them up. But if you had them last night, if you went higher on their points, you were walking away with a ton of money from Underdog last night. If you drafted them, you were walking away with money last night. So every night on Underdog, they offer pick'ems. You can go higher or lower on your favorite players' NBA stats. Use the promo code SLOP, that's S-L-O-P, and get a $100 deposit match bonus today. It supports us, supports the show, keeps the partnership going. So if you have not already, please sign up for Underdog, and you can do their nightly draft contests, their pick'em, and a ton of other stuff on the app. So please download it. Link is in the description. Check it out. So let's get into your beautiful baby boys, the bane of my existence right now, the Boston Celtics, who we have to talk about them because we've talked about them briefly recently. Obviously, we talked about the Tatum MVP stuff last week.
Yeah.
But it is becoming apparent that this team will keep getting away with this despite the title of this episode. I don't even know what to make of it. Like you guys played the Heat last night, and the Heat have been a team who have famously gotten under your skin. And
yes. I've said some things that against legal counsel about the Miami Heat, so no need to rehash. But it's safe to say they're one of my least favorite teams, and people should investigate any ties they have to other small businesses, shall we say, that cater to the rich in Miami. So, just investigate those. But anyway, the Miami Heat, royal family was in attendance. So, by the way, speaking of the royal family, also have ties to this small business in Miami. So, it's a beautiful closed circle there. Anyway, long live the king. Long live the king. He's Greek, folks.
So last night, I mean, even you guys basically can't stop winning, and it's driving me insane. Not only with last night's victory against the Heat, where you guys ran up the score. Obviously, Jimmy Butler was not playing, but the Heat, even without Jimmy, Bam's playing. They can go into rat mode, as you've always said. Their defense is still really good, even without Jimmy. And you guys kind of, you don't blow the doors off of them, but you pulled away in the fourth quarter. Once again, number one offense in the NBA by a very wide margin. Al Horford resigns today, gets a 2-year extension for 10. So how do you defend your the Al Horford contract? Why is the Al Horford contract good, and why are the other scam contracts bad?
Well, this is really something that we owe to your team and your city in Philadelphia, because Al Horford had such a bad time signing with the Sixers and going there that he was literally like, yeah, I'm good being exploited. I love not getting market value for my services. I love being cajoled into an under market contract and not making money, because it was that dog shit to have to play in a 3-big setting with Ben Simmons next to Ben Simmons. So he's not even gonna try it again. That's something. I mean, I think that's crazy under market for him. I kind of, when I was ballparking out, I was like, we should probably extend Al, I think 2 years. And I thought it was going to be 20 per. I thought it was going to be literally double,
15
which
or
I
20,
think is, like pretty fair. With maybe like a non-guarantee on the last year that's only like 10 million guaranteed or something, but it's still, money. I don't know. That is kind of crazy. I kind of can't believe Celtics might be losing some second round picks on that one. There might be some Fanatics cash or whatever the Boston version of that is going around. I'm not sure. Maybe like Anna has been given, I don't know, one of the I don't even know.
Some Pete Buttigieg
honeydew.
Bucks.
Yeah, she's been given a honeydew franchise in Faneuil Hall. I know there's not a honeydew in Faneuil Hall, but if that there's one going in there, and Anna Horford is going down. So delightful.
Well, Brad Stevens got the Department of Transportation on the phone, and he said, "Pete,
well,
listen."
He runs it. Yeah, no, he runs it. He's in his double life as Pete Buttigieg. So
said, "Listen, we need some government corruption money to give to this old man," which is actually like a year or two ago. If you had told me this a calendar year ago, I would have said, "Yeah, that sounds about right." Yeah, 2 years, 20 million for a guy who, is barely looking. It is an amazing turnaround for Horford. I mean, look, I know that he had his ups and downs with the Sixers. He was really good to start, and then he got injured, and he wasn't good, and there was a bunch of weird off the court stuff. And then he goes to OKC, and he looks competent. So of course they immediately shut him down.
Yeah, they were like, we can't have that. Sam
we
Presti,
can't risk this.
The criminal Sam Presti. He was immediately like, we cannot have a good player on this team. Goodbye.
Well, we can't risk it because we need the 6th pick to take Josh Giddey, is what he was saying.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, no, this is what we need right now.
I mean, like, didn't even work.
Well, and you know what? Honestly, even if you had told me this after last year, I would have been like, okay, that's pretty fair. Because I thought there has been a little bit of decline versus last year for Al, but it has not been as sharp as I expected. I expected him to really come down.
Sure.
And, who knows? I mean, this honestly, there is still a chance this could blow, it's pretty low risk, but it could blow up a little bit. Al could still get hurt. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it also really depends on, like, if Rob Williams comes back healthy and they can manage the minutes a little bit more, because I think if they keep playing Al like this all year, he is going to get hurt at some point. And that's obviously not the point. The point is to have him healthy for the playoffs. It doesn't matter about.
He was 37, 36, so he's 36 turning 37 this year. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't think that there's any recent precedent for giving a guy that's 36 or 37 $10 million a year.
Yeah.
Any
team would do that, yeah. Especially a guy who plays a big position or something like that. Yeah, a guy who you need as a switch defender. That would be like insane to do that.
It would be
a guy you want to
value.
Yeah, a guy you want to play power forward next to your established center. You never want to give a guy that kind of, especially on low usage, of course. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I do think from the Celtics perspective, this kind of all hinges on Time Lord being okay. I mean, but you already extended him. You're kind of betting on that anyway.
Yeah.
And this is one thing that I've talked about, which is something that makes me mad now that, like, the Celtics have already been managed pretty well outside of the last 2 years of Ainge. I think that all things have been very good for about 5 to 10 years now in this rebuild to whatever this current team is. And one of the things I keep talking about, and something that I get frustrated with that the Sixers don't do, is there's a huge advantage to having your own guys and extending them early. Yeah. And Stevens has now done this with, obviously he was, you guys were always going to extend Brown and Tatum, like, and that goes without saying.
Yeah. I mean, the Brown one, to be fair though, the Brown extension was like kind of panned. Well, and it was panned like in the moment. Everyone was like, you're giving Jaylen Brown that one, that's like $5 million under the max. Why, like, and also, to be fair, I fought people on that, but I also my heart was not super in it. I was like, I mean, that's right. It could go wrong,
Sure.
But I think that just goes to show how it is make a huge difference what the 10% max is for like a young guy versus, like, you know what I'm saying? Like you can, it's just way less dangerous than some of these older guys because they are younger, because they are, their maxes are cheaper. By a pretty substantial margin. What was, the 10% was once $5 million. Now that's like 10, or more than 10, so that's a whole thing. And it's funny you bring up the Celtics always do that because they fucked that up this year and didn't extend Grant,
They didn't extend Grant, but the Grant situation's a little bit different because the other guys that you've extended are Horford, Marcus Smart, guys that would have hit unrestricted free agency. I mean, Rob Williams also is technically in that class, but it's a little bit different because of his injury history. So the Celtics technically were taking a risk. So I think that I still think there is value to extending your guys in advance. Grant's the only one they haven't. And yes, he does look really good this year. And yes, he probably will get a ton of money after this year. Sure, but but you guys always have the right to match that now.
That's true.
And with restricted free agency, I'm fine with teams taking it up to restricted free agency, unless it is a situation like the one I didn't really get was Cam Johnson with the Suns. Now he gets hurt. Maybe the Suns are covering their asses a little bit there, but I just look at the Grant situation and I go, you can always match. Now Horford is making so much less money that you guys still have. Well, you'll have one more year of Brown left before he gets a real max. Yeah. You have Tatum in the second year of his rookie extension max. Like, you're going to be into the tax, but like, you're a contending team. You should go into the tax anyway. You should pay that money. And worst case scenario, if Grant is really good and worth keeping for the long haul, you can move Derek White or Malcolm Brogdon or something like that and try to get smaller contracts or whatever it is.
Yeah, and they've got, that's the only thing is that, like, and you don't have to worry about this, is like as much when you're a clear title, like, clearly the window is here. It is open. It is here, so I care less about this. But the Celtics also have, that we're in year 3 of them just not having a first-round draft pick, which that means, they're just not going to have young guys in a little bit, or drafted young guys. They're going to have to do the Miami Heat thing, which, they've successfully pulled off with Sam Hauser. But, that's a hard thing to do over and over and over again. The young, cheap guys, like, they're going to have to extend Peyton Pritchard next year, which is, it sounds funny, but, like, he's actually like an NBA rotation player. I know, like, it's weird to say, but like, he's actually an important part of their depth too. Like, they probably will not be spending $10 million on him, but he might get a contract like that somewhere.
Sure, might get like a $6 or $7 million extension in advance, and then
I went to the game live in person. He's bigger than I thought he looks on TV. Grant is less big, but like Peyton Pritchard is like 2 inches short. Yeah, I was gonna say Grant's like Grant. He's like Peyton Pritchard is like 2 inches shorter than Grant. So take from that what you will. Like, and they play power forward and I mean, I think I was giving myself cosmic insanity listening to a group chat on the Rigger. And Barrier said he put 0 teams in tier 1 because it's wide open this year. This is the most wide open the league's ever been. And I was like, I mean, you might have been able to say that before the year, but I feel like the Celtics have clearly established themselves as some sort of like 1A, at least until, if Middleton comes back and like the Bucks look like gangbusters, then sure. Or if like the Suns come in and like kick the shit out of them. But I think there's a pretty clear number 1 in the NBA right now.
Yeah, I feel
like I'm not being that much of a homer when I say
no, that. You're not, because on the last episode, and it's funny because I have talked to Celtics fans and they're like, you're trying to jinx us, and I'm like, I really just think they're the best team. Like, I'm not even like they do well with basically any matchup in the Eastern Conference. They're on pace to win 66, 67 games. They have the best net rating by a wide margin. They have the best offense by a wide margin. I don't really think that this is any sort of homer bias on your end. Mm-hmm. The only thing that I think could potentially fuck things up is if Rob Williams is just not Rob Williams. Because I do think that we've talked about Rob a lot. And like, I still think even without him, you guys have a chance to win the East. But like with him, it makes it like you guys are 100% matchup proof if you get Rob back. Right. Because you can have any scheme you can run defensively. Offensively, you just have shooting at every position except for Rob. It's just going to be really, really tough for any team to beat them. Maybe Milwaukee has a chance. The rock, paper, scissors thing we've talked about. They have the best player. Like, it's entirely possible. But right now, like the thing that blows my mind is, and I don't know if the Celtics, I should say, I still think the Celtics are the 1A, number 1 contender. I picked them to win the finals before the year, and I'm sticking with that. But I have a stat here which fucking blew my mind. So the Celtics, and we know that they're the number 1 3-point shooting team in the NBA, obviously. They shoot a ton of threes. They shoot more than anyone else. They make more than anyone else, which is...
I think they have 5 of the top 19 guys as of like two games ago. And like, I think it's 5 guys over 45%. They're good, but that probably
they're going to regress.
Hold. Yeah.
those guys will regress,
right?
Which is something that we're going to talk about right here. Which is So just to put it in historical context, I think we can look at the NBA 3-point era as before and after the Warriors, right?
Right, exactly. Yep.
So the Warriors, as of today, are the greatest shooting team from the 15-16 season. So the season that they went 73-9, they're the greatest three-point shooting team from a percentage standpoint in the three-point shooting era. They shot 41.1% on 31.6 attempts per game from three in that year when they went 73-9 with all those shooters. This was before KD, but it was Steph and Clay and whatever. To put it in perspective how well the Celtics are shooting right now, they're shooting 40.8, so less than a full percentage point less from three. And they're shooting 10 more threes a game. They're shooting 41.6 threes per game, which is 10 more than the Steph Curry, Klay Thompson peak Warriors, who really only had two non-shooters in their lineup, which was Draymond, who actually shot pretty decent that year on lower volume, and Andrew Bogut was really the only non-shooter in their entire rotation, if I remember correctly from that year. I guess maybe Zaza Pachulia. I can't remember what his numbers were that year, but long story short, even
Iguodala was shooting well.
Sure.
Like that was before he kind of fell off a cliff and everything like that. Yeah.
Barnes too. I mean, Harrison Barnes was still.
I mean, they're on pace to be the greatest offense ever, beating what might be the greatest team of all time, but just destroyed by the Nets, the
Nets offense,
the Nets that we never really saw. The only team that ever saw them were the Boston Celtics, who got destroyed.
Right,
and everyone was like, "Oh, the Celtics team is done," which was one of the dumbest things ever because they were playing literally one of the greatest teams of all time. No Jaylen Brown, and everyone had COVID all year. They had like double what everybody else in the league. I think
this was the Harden, KD, Kyrie year when you guys lost in the first round. Yeah. And I remember vividly rewatching some games from the series and feeling bad for Tristan Thompson and Evan Fournier after that, because I was like, it actually was the thing. I was always kind of like being like a little bit of a calculator rat and just like looking at Evan Fournier's numbers and being like, he shoots a lot of threes and like he can pass and like I talked myself into him. And then I watched that series and I was like, he can't play in the playoffs. You just can't play that guy in the playoffs.
Yeah, because we were all doing the same thing. All us Celtics fans were doing the same thing. Where it's like, he's good. It's only two second round picks, yada yada. And then I just like you get there and you're like, oof. That was also the series.
But
where
that
it was
team
official that Kemba was done.
Oh yeah,
that one too. Like it was like.
But that team had 119 offensive rating, 120.
It was like the high 118. I think
it was like the Nets, and then the Jazz broke it the next year, I think. And the Celtics have a 123 offensive rating, is it? Like it's something it's something crazy. And the shooting, once again, I think from
122.2, right?
122.2, which is I mean, to put it in perspective, I think they said it on the broadcast last night. It was like the difference between the second and the 19th offense is the same difference between the Celtics and the Suns, who are in second place.
Right,
show the gap. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah, so 4.5, it's shrunk a little now. It's like the gap between 2 and the 13th place Pacers, but still very, very incredible. It's funny the Raptors are right below them in offensive rating, and I want to talk about the Raptors. We'll get to them later, but I have some
but
things on that.
On the 3-point thing, because this kind of leads into the Patreon part of the podcast that we're going to talk about.
All right.
Which is, what do we really take from these early season numbers? Because I think we all can agree that Al Horford, Malcolm Brogdon, Derek White, and Grant Williams aren't going to shoot 45 to 50% from three for the entire season.
Sam Hauser might, but the rest of them will not. Yeah.
And but I did look at it, and the one thing that I will say is that might help it. I don't think that you guys are going to be the greatest shooting team and also shoot the most. Like from a volume plus percentage standpoint, or maybe you will be, but not by as wide of a margin as it is right now.
Yeah.
And the one thing I looked at was the fact that Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum are your two highest volume 3-point shooters. And they're actually shooting below their career averages.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Which means, so Jayson Tatum shooting 36.6% from three, And Jaylen Brown is the one who's shooting way below his career average, which is he's shooting 33.6% from three. So the other guys like Al Horford shooting 48% is not going to last. Grant Williams, 44%, probably won't last. Derek White, 45, Malcolm Brogdon, 49. But all of those guys are shooting like 4 or less threes per game. And Tatum and Brown are the two that are shooting over 6 per game. So if Tatum's percentage goes up, which he gets some of the hardest shots in the league in terms of having to face so many defensive coverages. He's the 1A on that team. They're constantly focused on basically making sure he can't shoot that pull-up three. So that might sustain itself a little bit, but I think Jaylen Brown's is going to go up. So that might make up for a little bit of the loss that you will get from those. And it might balance out to still be like the greatest high volume 3-point shooting team of all time. If not, it would be like up there with those Warriors teams, basically.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because of the big versatility, especially like Grant Williams and Luke Cornett both being over 40% is crazy. Like,
the 5-out shit just like has broken the defenses. Like,
right. Like even Blake Griffin is shooting 40%. I mean, given he's played like 13 games.
What is that, like 10 attempts?
8 games, yeah. But yeah, I don't even know. But that is very funny that like, there's two, Justin Jackson and Noah Vonleh. The Celtics have 5 people under 40% from three. Only 5 of the 13 people who have taken a 3-point attempt. 2 of them, it's Justin Jackson and Noah Vonleh are 2 of them, which is understandable. But then the other 3 are Jayson Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart.
Yeah. Well, Smart makes sense. Smart making a league average. I think his career average is right a little bit below.
Career. Yeah, I think that's like pretty much right at his career average.
Sure.
He's at 36%, which I think is right around. He's a better shooter. He's at 32%. So he's actually well above it. I thought he was higher than that. He's actually
early in his career, he was not a good shooter.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I forgot he had that second year. He was 4 attempts a game and 25%. Oof.
Don't stop shooting.
He didn't, and he turned himself into a good shooter. Like, it was worth it. But
I've been telling myself that with Sixers players for fucking 7 years. But no, the thing about this is I don't think that the offense is necessarily 100% sustainable. But while Rob is out, it does feel like having 5 guys on the court almost at all times that can shoot makes it virtually impossible when you have 2 guys like Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown as well, plus a bunch of great connective passers with Al Horford and Derek White, and even Grant's gotten better, like attacking closeouts and all that shit. So
Rob's a great passer too. Like,
he is
out of the hub.
Like, he just can't.
He's like he's got a little more than you'd think. The thing is, he kind of really doesn't need to because he's just such a vertical threat. There's like 2 guys in the NBA who, if somebody throws a pass can break up a Rob Williams lob attempt. Like that's the thing with him. I think what I expected when Rob comes back, the defense will obviously improve. It might not improve as much as people think. I think the Celtics are a little bit worse of a defensive team. They're not like Al is not what he once was, and I think he was a bigger part of it than people realize. So
I was surprised to see the defensive metrics that always love Al were like he's a negative defender for the first time. Even his Sixers year, I don't think he was a negative defender on those metrics.
That eye test that looks to be about right. Like Al is. It's so weird. Al is so feast or famine, like play to play. Like someday he'll look so sprightly sometimes, and other times he'll just get totally blown by. It really is. They're going to have to be careful with his rest. But, to the point, though, I just think that, Rob, it might not help their efficiency numbers because Rob doesn't provide the 3-point spacing. But I've always said that I expect that to actually help the offense when Rob comes back. Because what I did not expect and why that might not hold true is because the Celtics have traditionally had very bad rim pressure. Jaylen Brown has been traditionally our best finisher inside, good at getting the line. Jayson, traditionally that's been like one of his last weak points is, especially when he feels like he gets fouled and he doesn't get the call. He complains on his way back up the court. That pisses the refs off more. He doesn't he won't get the call again. And then he complains. It's a vicious cycle. So we've always done badly with that. Now these guys have a wider open space with no Rob. They're getting to the rim and they're not getting knocked off their spot. They are finishing, especially Jayson Tatum, at a higher clip on the inside. And that is, that is something that was missing last year. And that was something they really relied on Rob for, was to get rim pressure and to compress the defense. And that really made a huge difference for the team. So maybe this iteration of the Celtics, that will be less important and he won't have as big of an impact on the offense as I thought. It's hard to when it's the greatest offense of all time. But I do think, the Celtics will probably end up in the top 3 of offense at the end of the year. Maybe not historically great, but up there. And I think they are going to come way up in defense. I think they'll probably finish top 5, top 7, something like that. Probably not number 1 with a bullet like they were last year, but up there. And I think that's good enough. I think that's good enough for winning a championship, to be top 5 and, top 3 in offense.
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to avoid what my real thoughts on this are, which is I talked about it before the preseason. I said I thought the Celtics were going to win the finals. Mm-hmm. It's gearing up to me to look like a nightmare for Sixers fans, and I think it's going to be Celtics Nuggets. Like, I just think that, because think about and we'll talk a little bit more about the Western Conference later from a few things that I want to bring up, but just think about and you can never count out the Warriors just because Steph's playing at the highest level he's ever played.
I want to talk about that later. We'll get into that later.
I don't think you can count them out when when they scale up everyone's minutes and they cut down to that 8-man rotation or 7-man rotation or whatever it is. But the West, I mean, Justin Verrier said that I wouldn't put anyone in tier A for contenders. Yeah. Maybe in the West. I think the West is a bit more like everyone is more balanced, and there are probably 5 teams I could see coming out of the Western Conference. But
yeah, you could tell me, like you said, 6 teams, and I wouldn't bet. You tell me the Pelicans came out of the West. Sure, why not? Like, even I keep making the joke, and I'm doubling down on the Grizzlies. But you can tell me the Grizzlies come out of the West. I wouldn't, Warriors, Suns, anything. Honestly, even the Clippers are kind of pulling it together, even though, Kawhi Leonard's.
I just don't think that. I picked them before the season, and if Kawhi's not Kawhi, they don't have a shot. Like, it's just kind of what the reality is. And you could go as far to say as.
I'm not counting out Ty Lue.
Oh yeah, the GOAT. I forgot.
Yeah. Don't count out Ty Lue, baby.
Unfortunately, they're not going to be playing Rudy Gobert every round. Or the Jazz's perimeter defense. So I just want to pull up one thing before we move on from this topic, and I want to get your thoughts on this right here. Hold on 1 second.
Is it Joe Mazzulla saying that the only royal family he believes in is Jesus?
No.
Jesus, Mary, and Joseph? No.
That was good, though.
That was a good bit. That's a good Catholic. I forgot how important a Catholic coach in Boston would be.
It's true. The pandering is incredible. My grandma would have loved that, too.
It's like we're not Boston. One last IRA thing for Boston. No royalists and not recognizing the royal.
I did see that Twitter account. Irish Celtics was really pissed. They were like, "We do not support the royal family." They have the IRA fucking profile picture.
Say Lucky comes out in a ski mask and they just rush them out. It is. We don't talk about that enough, about how the Celtics mascot is just like a guy. Like we don't put him in a funny suit. It's just like a man. It's like the Subway.
Is there any other team that does that?
No, it's like Subway from the Community joke where the guy signs a legal waiver to become the personification of the restaurant chain Subway. Man is actually Lucky now. He had an identity. It is dead. He was killed, and now his body has become a vessel for the dark soul of Lucky the Leprechaun. So.
It's the same thing as promo code slot.
Yes,
exactly. Which is now my legal name.
Name.
So I need to pull this up for you. Speaking of the Nuggets, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this.
This is perfect.
This tweet great. Right here from Andy Bailey.
Funny. That rules. This rule. Okay, the reason this rules.
We need to explain what it is for people who are listening.
Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot we have listeners here.
People who are listening. This is our best friend Andy Bailey, who Sixers fans know fondly because of they fought with Nikola Jokic over the MVP last year and probably the year before that too. But it's one of those blind tests where it says player A and then a bunch of random stats and then player B and a bunch of random stats. And of course, the one who won in a landslide in this blind test is Nikola Jokic, and the person who lost is Jayson Tatum. So.
Mm-hmm. So I just want to read for the people at home what his first metric he puts out here is. It's the player A and player B, and it's their numbers. And what would you think? Is it points? Is it VORP? He's a numbers guy. Maybe it's VORP or Raptor or something like that. No. The first thing is points plus points by assist. That is some fucking screen assist awesome shit if I've ever seen it. That rules. I can't knock the hustle, man. The agendas are agendas. Like
the stat we all know love is points plus points by assist.
You know how like you're arguing with your buddies and then somebody, brings up the year that Steph Curry was 50.1 points by point plus points by assist. KD loves clapping back at haters online by bringing up his points and points by assist.
Let's go.
Also, got that rocks. Awesome.
Also, I understand Jokic is like a historically impactful on-off guy. Yeah. But your 31.9 swing does not count when DeAndre Jordan is the backup center. I refuse to allow anyone, because you probably could have done the same thing with Embiid last year when people were arguing he was not the MVP. Which, when DeAndre Jordan was his backup, we were getting fucking slaughtered every minute, and then we only won during the Embiid minutes. So, like, I do think it's funny because, once again, I last episode I got into a little bit of trouble here where I was trying to make fun of Jokic, and they ended up being like, oh, that's actually like, oh, he's only averaging this many points. And then I saw his true shooting percentage and his effective field goal percentage.
Yeah, his
and
true
I was
shooting is pretty good.
It's 70%.
Yeah, it's 70.6 right now. That is pretty good. I mean, like, look, I can't.
Pretty good.
I can't knock it. Yeah, it's all right. It's all right.
For someone who actually shoots, although he doesn't really shoot threes anymore, but for someone who actually shoots, it's like brain breaking good. But yeah, I mean, he's having like a historical mid-range season. He's been great, but also he clearly doesn't care about winning MVP, because who was the last MVP that averaged 22 points a game? Like, that just doesn't happen. Like, the Nuggets are going to probably end up being up there with you guys in terms of offense by the end of the year, just due to the fact that he's like a ridiculous creator. But I also think that, like, that's not even Jokic's objective anymore. Like, it's very obvious that he just wants to get his teammates involved and win and probably save it for the playoffs.
Honestly, I think he's going to have the Giannis year from 2 years ago, where it would be his best, honestly, his best, most impressive statistical year yet. But he will not win the MVP because people are sick and tired of voting for him. But I think it's gonna come down to Steph and Tatum, because I think Luka's team is just going to be too bad. And
what about Booker? Do you think Booker's throwing his hat in the ring a little bit?
He's in the mix. You know what I'm saying? I see him more of as like a first team All NBA guy, but like, who knows? Yeah. I think once he like enters the gauntlet, and people start picking at your defense and stuff like that.
Yeah.
All that stuff, like, and then, on top of that, you've got the, you've got to beat the Western Conference Final allegations. Next year might be his year. Like, they need to kind of
because they collapsed last year.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Like, that's going to be in everyone's mind. That's the shit.
That's what Tatum is facing right now with the finals.
Exactly. Well, and that's why That's why I'm so slanderous to Steph, because I think he's the clearest threat, because he's the one. That's going to be the narrative matchup. That's what the Warriors propaganda machine is going to rely on. Is that. It doesn't matter that Tatum had to go through fucking Miami and the fucking Bucks while they got to do what the Mavericks and a young Grizzlies team that was absolutely not ready for the moment. The Grizzlies team that almost lost to the fucking Wolves.
I will say, I know you hate it. The Bucks without Middleton, they're not that much different than the Mavericks without. I would say that version of the Bucks.
They won the title. I know.
They won the title 2 years ago with Chris Middleton
1 year ago from that series.
1 year ago from
they
the
were
series.
The defending champs.
But Chris Middleton was a big part of the reason. I mean, he won them game 6
He's a
when
Celtics killer.
Yeah,
that would be the argument, is that he's a Celtics killer.
Yeah.
That's the
but
I don't know. I just think Drew was a more important part of those teams when they won.
I disagree. I think Middleton was. Game 6 of the Hawks series, Giannis was out and Chris Middleton scored 39 points. He was their entire offense. I actually am of the mindset that Drew's a little bit overrated and Middleton's a little bit underrated when it comes to this.
I would agree with that in general, but I do think that Drew has, kind of, I don't know. I think Drew was a really important part of that team, because that team is built on a defensive identity. Obviously, that all stems off of Giannis, and Brooke is back there too. But I don't think it is a mistake that the Bucks became serious title contenders when they got Drew.
I agree.
I do think that is I think that is a real important part. I know he's dogged it for them. I know Bucks fans are pissed at him right now for how he. I'm sure they're screaming at me right now, but I really just think that he overall is more important than he gets credit for. And Middleton is like Jaylen Brown. You know what I'm saying? He's there to buoy you when your first guy doesn't have it. And that's very important. But
for a team with Giannis, when you're trying to create in the half court, is my whole thing is their offense can look so bad sometimes. And when Drew is thrusted into that secondary creator role, he's much better as the tertiary guy, where he can where the other two are bending the defense and he's kind of working off the advantages that they create. But I still think they're both kind of similar level players. I understand your argument, but I do think that Giannis is probably better than Luka just because of the two-way push. But Luka in the playoffs is arguably a top 3, top 5 guy. And that's the one thing. And I do think that Mavs team sucks for a Western Conference Finals team. I agree with you on that.
But what I'm saying, I'm not even talking about the quality of the team. I'm talking about how physically punishing it is to go through those teams.
Yeah,
that is the difference.
It's not hard to go up against.
Ja Morant and Luka Doncic are not doing the same thing to you that Giannis and a rat mode Heat team, Kyle Lowry and fucking Jimmy Butler and Bam and all of their weird little guys they throw at you. It's pretty clear to me that Tatum was sore. The Celtics were beat up and tired.
I'm not allowing this. No, this is the one thing that Sixers fans have where you're not allowed. No. When you guys win the finals this year, we won't have anything.
Well, this is why I think it's different, because the other side of the coin is the Celtics blew their whole fucking first half of the season and they had to play balls to the walls down the stretch, and we're still tired from that too. Which is something you should blame the Celtics for, because it's their own damn fault. They, Jayson Tatum ate dog shit last year for 3 months. It gave me psychosis. God, if I were on the podcast last year, you would have seen some real red rum shit. I make your Hawks stream. I would have made your Hawks stream look sane. That Knicks game where RJ Barrett hit a 3 to win the game. I was going insane. Full all work no play makes Jack a dull boy in the Twitter DMs. But
you were losing your mind because I knew you kept being you came on the podcast and you're I know this team is not this bad. You were like I'm not crazy, and I was like
exactly.
Sam, get some help, dude.
Yeah, exactly. They gaslit me for a year and a half. I knew they weren't bad the year before either. I was like, fuck, gee, and everyone was getting mad at me because I was like, Jayson Tatum is just playing bad. I'm telling you, it's just Jayson Tatum is playing bad. It's he's carrying on the team. Yes, but he can also play better, and I know he will. And he finally did. And thank God. I would be. Oh man. Anyway.
Sam, it's over now.
It's dramatic.
You won. You won. I'm still in it, dude. I'm still in the fucking trenches.
We're not out of the woods yet. There's a lot of awful things that can happen.
Actually, that's true. Yeah. Especially with Marcus Smart's injury history and Robert Williams. Yeah.
Al. We're one Al injury away from Luke Cornett being our starting center, who's played well, but.
Yeah,
yikes.
All things considered. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the end of our Celtics talk. If you want to hear the rest of this conversation where we talk about some crazy shit that's happened in the first quarter of the season, we're going to discuss outlier statistics. We're going to discuss what we think is sustainable, what's not sustainable, and just some crazy shit that has happened. Subscribe to the Patreon. The link is in the description. So thanks for tuning in to this part, but now you have to pay.
That's right. Money only. We're only talking one thing. Capitalism is back, baby. You know how I always say I'm a communist on the podcast? No more.
That was a bit.
Right. Mask off. Let's go. Money only.
Yeah,
Talk
let's
to
go.
the Benjamin.
We're all gonna get Neuralink chips to celebrate capitalism.
It's exclusive. You're paying for an exclusive experience. This is Firefest. The Patreon is Firefest, and you're signing up, and you're getting good stuff.
Let's go.